coming, and I'd like to also welcome our audience on Facebook. Welcome everyone, and thank you for your interest in town affairs and in participating in our meeting tonight. First thing I'd like to do is acknowledge that the land upon which we gather is the traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq, and we pay our respects to the indigenous Mi'kmaq people of this territory, past, present, and future. So with that, I'll move to item number 2, which is a declaration of conflict of interest. If any counselor or anyone advising council has a conflict of interest on any matter that's before the council tonight, I'd ask them to declare such conflict of interest now. If not, we'll move on to item number 4, which is minutes. The regular monthly meeting minutes of July 8th, 2020 are part of your package, and I believe these were distributed, are available on our website too. Is that correct, CAO Hughes? Yeah, so these are available on our website as well. The minutes of every council meeting are posted to our website, so you're welcome to look at those now. I'm sorry, I didn't approve the agenda. I skipped over that. That's the second time I've done that. I better smarten up here. Okay, I will go back, just retract what I just said, and ask for, if everyone's had a chance to look at the agenda, if there are any changes to the agenda, any additions or deletions, anything anyone would like to see changed on the agenda.
I would like to move that item number 12, planning department, be moved up to number 9, and city services moved down accordingly.
Okay, got a seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay. All those, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Okay, so we now, we're going to substitute the safety services and the planning report.
Mayor, if I could make another agenda change, can I still do that?
Sure.
Can I just switch in the planning report, we had new developments on Greenway that I think Robert's going to speak to. So if we could switch Greenway and put it first and Redden second, so switch C and D, I think that'd be good.
Yeah, I don't have any issue with that, and I think that's within your prerogative as chair of planning. CAO Hughes, is there any? We don't need a motion on that. So we don't need a motion?
Oh, maybe I missed it. I didn't. Okay, I thought it was just for that one change. Okay, all right.
Okay, we need another. So you're going to move that we change the order of the planning report.
If I could.
Okay, no. So if you want to move that seconder there.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Okay, so I'd ask for a motion for approval of the agenda with those changes.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor, or any discussion? If not, we'll ask for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Okay, so we'll now move to the minutes of our regular meeting of July 8th, 2020, and just ask for any additions, deletions, or revisions to those minutes, if anyone's noticed anything that needs to be changed. If not, I'll ask for approval of the minutes of July 8th, 2020.
So moved.
Second? Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Okay, next item is presentations from the floor. Do we have any? I know we're not open to the public right now, so I would ask if there's any. We haven't got any presentations from the floor. Robert? No. Okay. Okay. My report is in your package, and if anyone has any questions on that report, please let me know, or please ask now. There's been quite a busy month, a lot of things going on. So, okay, if there's no questions on my report, I'll ask for...
I have a question.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, sorry.
Thank you. I wonder if you can elaborate on your meeting with Minister Fox and Mayor Brown with the president of the Shellfish Association.
Yeah, we just basically went over some of the occurrences over the past few months with regard to the shell fishery closures, and we wanted to just to make sure what lessons were learned, and to discuss the future going forward and what actions have been taken by both municipalities to really protect the shell fishery. So that was basically the gist of the meeting.
Okay, thanks. I have another question. You mentioned that you visited 3 new businesses in Stratford. I'm wondering if we can name those.
You ask tough questions.
Yeah.
La La Land, which is a children's play area, and it really is a recreational area for children. The Realty, do you remember the name of the Realty? Powerhouse Realty. And the third one was... Oh yes, Down East Docks. Yes, they're both they're all in the business park. Yeah.
Thanks. And you also mentioned here that you had a meeting with the residents on Rosebank with regards to the speed humps. I'm wondering, was there any decision made on a permanent speed hump in that area?
I spoke with several residents about that, and I also spoke with residents about other issues as well. So there were a couple of conversations I had by telephone about the speeding on Rosebank, and discussed with them the need for a permanent speed hump there, and that is, I understand, under discussion at Safety Services, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. As well as several newcomers were having difficulty with immigration-related issues, and I spoke with them and connected them with the responsible area, which is the Federal Department of Immigration, and through their Member of Parliament.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other questions on my report? If not, I will go to, and all this material is available on our website as well. As Wendy, the agenda package is all available. All of the material that we're looking at is also available to the public through the website. Okay, the Chief Administrative Officer's report. I'll turn it over to CAO Hughes.
Thank you, Your Worship. My report is there in the package. Just highlight a couple of items. Pleased to report that we had a couple of RFPs out in July. One for HR services, and the best proposal that we received actually was from a local firm in Stratford here, Resolve HR. And the other one that we had out in July was Family Services, Employee and Family Services Employee Assistance Program. And we also, the best proposal submitted was from Serene View Ranch, which is located in Alexandra, just next to Stratford. So great to see local businesses not only involved, but also competing very well. So, and the other items are there. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Robert, I'm noticing that you mentioned the resident survey report. I'm just wondering when that might be ready for us to have a look at.
Actually, I apologize for not sending you the survey. We will send you out the survey. We're now planning, we did present it to Accountability Engagement, and now planning on releasing the results and what way we're going to do that, but I'll make sure you get a copy of it though.
Thank you. And you also make a note here that you met with the province, or no, you sent correspondence to the province regarding getting the MGA changed with regard to the PACE program. I wonder if you heard back from the province.
Yes, in a couple of ways. I did hear from the staff person who was responsible, and she actually sent me the draft changes that they're proposing to make. They're very
Robert, I'm just going to ask you to provide any update you can on the community campus negotiation and where that stands.
We're in the process of making another offer. We have had a number of meetings with some of the landowners, and now I have blessing of council to make an offer. So we're in the process this week of doing that. Hopefully we'll hear back in the next. It hasn't been made yet. Hoping before our meeting this week, we'll let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now move to item, I guess we'll call it number 12, Planning Development Heritage. And I'll turn it over to Chair of Planning Development Heritage, Councillor Jill Burridge.
Just going to move closer to my mic here. So I'll start with the report. Our last planning meeting, August 3rd, it centered around our two applications, our two developments, which we do have resolutions coming up for tonight on the agenda. The first discussion regarding Redden Meadows. Points of discussion on Redden Meadows was hit on a few things. One was a discussion on and exploring rough math on the new R1 in the bylaw and applying the 20 to 40% semi-detached allowances within the bylaw 45 and kind of where that math would end up. Just trying to compare it to the planned unit residential development zoning that we're talking about. So there was some rough math done on that. I think in the end it was with R1, and again, this is rough math, but it was sitting around 60 to 65 units-ish that you could put within an R1. Of course, the development that's before us is, I think, 78, right? So that was done. Connection between the rezoning and the development scheme, which we're having a hard time with, and just how that works. And we might get into that a little further on through the discussion with the resolutions. We can probably dive into that a little bit deeper. How we weight responses. There's the 13 criteria that we refer to, and just how as a decision maker within the planning board weight those. You have residents' concerns, you have official plan, you have lots of things you got to weigh. So walking through that. The dates of the data collection, traffic, which Kevin, I came back with. I think October 2nd was the date that he came back with. Derek would know for sure. That was one of your questions. Future of Stratford, planning for the future, precedent on future applications, and how our decision today may change future developers and the way they tackle things. So these were all items, and I have to say, in both developments, a lot of stuff goes between both developments. Greenway, and I guess I should wrap up. Planning board on Redden Meadows voted 5-1 in favor of supporting the planning staff's recommendation to approve it. Greenway Realty, traffic study, just basically a lot of traffic talk within that development, and there was a traffic statement in that case. Not a study, so just discussing what that means. Diversity in housing types in that development. Buffering was another piece, and then of course having single dwellings back on single dwellings, and that's something we do like to do. And then the wrap up with that was a vote. Planning staff had recommended to deny the application, and the planning board supported that 4-1. Civic core plan was our next topic of discussion, and this is the Grey Group Civic core plan that they're presenting right now. Crossroads Fire Department, it's kind of sitting with them because there is increased building heights, and they have to figure out how they could accommodate that before we take this thing public. And the fire company is seeking outside professional advice on that matter. town and TIE representatives are meeting regarding a traffic impact study and how this development would affect things. And lastly, Heritage secured a $25,000 funding through Veterans Affairs for the Stratford Honor Roll project. 10 soldiers who lost their lives at war. It's going to recognize them. It'll make the existing cenotaph fully accessible year-round and a place people can gather for remembrance and reflection, so that's a positive note on that. That's the report. Are there any questions on the report? I think a lot of the discussion will be in the resolution. So, permit summary. The reports are in there. If you have any questions, we are down Kevin tonight. We do have Blaine with us tonight. So I can try to field some questions.
Do you feel that there is anything that's out of the ordinary that we should discuss tonight, or just all plain stuff that we have every month?
I don't think that there's anything out of the ordinary at this point, and a lot of it is Stratford has been there has been a lot of home improvements, I would say. It took a lot of the building permit time, a lot of fences, accessory buildings, pools, this kind of thing. That seems to be the big chunk of things. If there's no questions, I can move on to the resolutions.
Joe, just a question.
Mm-hmm.
Our numbers compared to last year, I know as we're in COVID times here, we looking good?
We're sitting okay.
Yeah.
We're sitting okay, and Kevin feels that, with the budget that we presented in February, that he feels that we're on track. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, moving on, we'll go to Greenway, and the resolution on Greenway, and I don't know how you want to handle this, Mayor. These are big decisions, big resolutions tonight. Do you want me to just read the resolution in, or do you want to have a discussion prior?
Well, I think it's important that we have the discussion as per the normal accepted procedure in our Robert's Rules of Order, which is we read the resolution in, and then discussion. Somebody moves it, seconds it, and then we have a discussion.
Okay.
That's accepted.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, what I can do is I will read that in. Okay. Number PH 015-2020-RZ001-20, Greenway Realty Inc., R1 Deferred, Aintree Drive. Whereas an application has been received from Greenway Realty Inc. to rezone parcel numbers 399725, approximately 6.46 acres in total, from the low-density residential zone R1 to the planned unit residential development zone PURD. And whereas this rezoning request will require the following amendment to be considered: zoning and development bylaw and amendment to the official zoning map to change parcel number 399725 from low-density residential zone R1 to the planned unit residential development zone PURD. Whereas the concept plan has been reviewed and concerns were raised about parkland, street connectivity, and uniformity of housing types. And whereas the developer made minor changes to the concept plan, but the town planner had still identified a number of conflicts the latest concept plan has in relation to the town's official plan. And whereas 103 notification letters were sent out to property owners whose parcels were within 500 feet of the subject property to solicit input on the proposed official plan and zoning amendment, and notifying them of the public meeting to be held July 15th, 2020, and 22 written responses and 2 petitions have been received. Whereas a public meeting was held on July 15th, 2020 at 7 p.m. at the Stratford Emergency Services Center. Due to the current COVID-19 gathering restrictions, this public meeting was limited to 50 people, but was also live streamed for people to watch, and residents were given until July 22nd, 2020 to submit their comments. And there was much concern about the connection of Aintree Drive and Campbell Drive. Be it resolved that bylaw number 45-E, a bylaw to amend the town of Stratford zoning and development bylaw, bylaw number 45, be hereby read and approved first time. This resolution does not bear the recommendation of the Planning and Heritage Committee as discussed at a meeting held August 3rd, 2020. So moved.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, discussion. Before we start the discussion, I'd just like to maybe just put a couple of parameters on it. One is that we're voting on first reading of a zoning change tonight. We're not voting on any development plan or any concept plan, anything like that. We're just talking about the rezoning of this property to allow for planned unit residential development. The other thing is, I'd like each councillor to really articulate their reasons for their position on this, so that we can really understand what the reasoning is behind whatever decision we make here tonight. With that, I'll turn it over, open the discussion for whoever wishes to speak. So just indicate.
I think Robert has, and this is part of, there has been an update to this application, a recent application. Robert's going to speak to that now.
Okay, sorry, go ahead, Robert.
Thank you, Councillor Burge. Am I close enough? So we had met with Greenway Realty since the planning board application was reviewed by planning board, and they made the recommendation. And they have submitted a revised concept plan, which was designed to address some of the concerns that were raised by staff, planning board, and residents during the process. What we're proposing is that you approve the reading of first reading tonight, but not to say that you're in favor of the subdivision, but when you are approving a change to the zoning bylaw, it requires first reading at one meeting and then second reading and adoption at the second meeting. And if you are against the subdivision, or against the rezoning regardless of the concept plan, then by all means vote against the resolution. But if you're open to the rezoning with changes or without changes to the concept plan, then we advise you to vote in favor of the resolution, not to say that you're in favor of it, but to say that you're in favor of letting planning board review the revised concept and give you a new recommendation. It may be the same as before, and it may be different, but because there is a different concept submitted, and the developer has said that they want to work to address the concerns, then we would recommend that you vote for first reading in order to allow it to move forward to the September meeting. Then you'll have the recommendation from planning board on the concept. And another thing, just for your information, we reached out to legal counsel to find out if the developer made changes to the concept plan, do we have to go back to the public? And because the changes were made in response to comments received and actually reduced the density, the answer is we do not have to go back to the public and slow that process down for that reason. The developer has also indicated to us that they're under a time crunch because the land is under agreement subject to the rezoning and has time constraints to it.
So how does planning staff feel now about in terms of the recommendation?
In principle, Blaine has reviewed the revised, I did ask Blaine to review the revised concept today, and actually I'll let Blaine answer the question rather than put words in his mouth. But we aren't voting on the revised concept today, and it still does have to go to planning board for review and recommendation before it comes to council. So Blaine does have an opinion on it, but I would suggest that that's not the point of discussion for this evening. The point of discussion this evening is, do you want to let it go, do the first reading so that you can let the process unfold to review the revisions? I think it's a little unfair to ask council to approve the concept plan without having the benefit of staff and planning board advice. But you wouldn't normally be looking at the concept plan until after the second reading and adoption resolution, which would be the next week.
Did you want
seeking an opinion on the concept plan or on the rezoning? And because the advice of staff, planning staff on the rezoning was, has that changed?
The planning advice was related to both, and the new concept plan makes the proposal more acceptable on both fronts.
Okay, thank you.
Would it be possible, do we have these plans online so that we can view them on screen, let the public see them? Or is that still confidential information?
They're in the attachments.
In fact, the planning board has not yet reviewed them, means that planning staff, the normal procedure is that our professional planners look at it, give their opinion and their advice and recommendation, goes to planning board, and then comes to council. So, please proceed, Blaine.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we did get another submission, site plan, and I reviewed it today. It's the same process as before. I looked at the official plan and all the policies, which ones are in favor of, which ones support it. I did find that there were a few more in support, and there were some changes for the existing policies because there were changes to the site plan, so therefore that also changed the opinions to how the policies mesh. So I did find that there were actually more, and there were some changes to the site plan that were in favor. As Robert had said, these changes were done to response to planning comments, and I feel that from looking at the new submission, it is more in favor of the official plan.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll ask people to, I'd like each counselor to comment on this, and then we'll call for a vote.
The only question, I have just a question on the resolution there, because I thought they went hand in hand. And when you look at the resolution, you're asking to rezone from R1 for Greenway Realty Inc. to rezone the parcels, or you're asking us to rezone R1 for Greenway. So to me, it goes hand in hand. This is why we're here tonight, to make that.
It does at second reading and adoption of the rezoning. We would not do that without an approved concept plan that was acceptable to council, because we would be voting, if the concept plan is not acceptable to planning board and to council, then that would be the end of it. It would not proceed to second reading and adoption for the rezoning or for the concept plan.
Well, if it does pass, and it does be rezoned to per, after third reading, there's some risk involved there that, the developers can back out and say it's just not feasible right now, so there's a risk there that the land could be sold, because once it's per, it's per.
But the difference is the concept plan would at that point be tied, it's my understanding, it would be tied to the rezoning. Is that not correct, Robert?
So, okay,
So would everything be off the table then?
So
Go
they-
back to R1?
so tonight we do the first reading, then at the next council meeting, we would do the second reading, adoption, and right after that, we would, adopt or approve the development scheme with it. And with that development scheme, then when you look in the bylaw, there's an agreement made between the town and the developer, and Robert, stop me if I'm wrong, but subsequent to the development scheme being approved, then there's an agreement made between the town and the developer. And Robert, feel free to chime in.
So what are the risks here? Is there risk here, or?
We'd ask for the professional opinion here.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll ask Robert then.
Yes, so there are two things to consider. One is to rezone the property to PERD with the intent for the developer to develop the property in accordance with the development scheme. So you'll you are correct in that if they decide at some point in time, for whatever reason, that they're not gonna go ahead with the development scheme that's proposed and approved, then it's still zone PERD, and they could sell the land to somebody else. Now, the person they sell it to wouldn't be able to develop it in accordance with, they could in accordance with the development scheme, or they could in accordance with what the bylaw says. The development scheme is a little bit more dense than what the bylaw would allow by right in the PERD zone. But it is zone PERD, and that is a higher density zone than the R1 zone that it is. So there is a risk, always a risk, when you rezone property, if they're presenting a development scheme, that they might walk away from that, and then the property is rezoned. So you're correct in that.
Excuse me, I'd like to ask Robert a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Robert, if we do change it to PERD, and the scenario that Deputy Mayor Claude just described happens, wouldn't we have the ability to turn it back to R1?
Yes, you could do that, but you'd have to initiate your own rezoning proposal then and go through the same process, have a public meeting, and do the first and second reading. But you would have the right to do that. It's just a little cumbersome, but yes, you have that right.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll ask each, maybe I'll ask, starting with Deputy Mayor Clough, I'll ask for your position on this.
Well, I didn't get a chance yet to look at the proposal in depth, because there is a new proposal in Greenway before us. I didn't get a chance to go through it, but what I did see, I liked. I think they've met all the requirements, in my mind, that the planners have asked for. I know that they've spoke to the residents in that area, and I just looked at it quickly, but I think we do have single-family dwellings now in there, which is mixed use. I think I read somewhere there where they're selling 15 feet of land to a homeowner for a bigger buffer area, which tells me they're working with the residents, along with working with their own staff and them to put up buffer zones and trees, and where they take out trees, replace them in the areas that they requested to meet their needs. And I believe that the residents must be overjoyed with some of the changes, and I think they've made the changes for the residents that they've requested in the entrance. I believe this is a good proposal for the town. I think it meets the needs of seniors. I think we have to try to keep our seniors in Stratford, especially the ones that want to downsize. And they've already have a history of this down on Kinloch Road. We did see a video and I spoke to a lot of residents. I know a lot of residents in there that love that model. And I think that we're just extending that to an area close by. So I like what I see here. It's one story all the way through. There's two entrances, one on Stratford, one on Aintree. I think they've met all the traffic studies or needs that's required in that area. So I'm leaning towards in favor of that. And I'm sure there's more, but I'd like to spend some time on the new proposal that just came in.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Vice Chair of Planning, I'll ask Councillor Steve Glenn to give us his position on this.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just come in here tonight and we got some last minute information regards this plan. I'm a person that sort of corresponds with the residents and listens to the residents and in the middle of the town and so on, and planning. As Vice Chair of Planning, we turned down this plan first because these 3 or 4 conditions weren't met. Now we're saying these conditions are going to be met, and we're going to just change the zone without, do we have a guarantee these positions are going to be changed from R1 to PERD? These conditions tonight, you know what I mean? And
As Robert, our CAO, suggested or stated, the change is first reading, which means it's not.
exactly, I understand what you mean.
It's not final stuff. It's not
Yeah.
immediately PERD. It becomes a transition. It becomes if the meeting approves it, it wouldn't be further, it would be,
Exactly.
we could just stop it and not do anything.
Exactly. With the developer to work with the town and so on, and I know there's a couple issues there, and that if he's gonna work with the town, and like Councillor Close said, there's an area for the seniors, with that level. As far as traffic, there's probably no trouble there with traffic, or it's to Stratford Road and the entry there, and so looking at it, if we're just going through first reading tonight now, I probably would be in favor of it.
Thank you. Councillor Donald?
Thank you, Richard. I'll be voting in favor of this resolution. The developer has certainly showed us a willingness to address concerns that have been brought up by the residents, and also just about half the current development is already zone PERD, so with those two items, along with a couple of the other issues that were just explained about the traffic situation and the need for more seniors housing in Stratford.
Thank you. Councillor Smith?
Okay, I've heard a statement. We, as councillors, are asked to make decisions during our mandate to improve programs for the betterment of the people of Stratford. Tonight, we are faced with two such decisions. In order for us to do this, there are specific steps that we must take. After all the facts are gathered, we are entrusted to make an informed choice that is based on facts. These steps are found in the Stratford Zoning Development Bylaw number 45 under section 3.2.2. There are 13 guidelines listed as A through M that we must use to reach our decision. This section can be found on page 28 and 29 of the said Act. I also feel that section 7.15.2 can be used as a reference to this section for my decision. The above named section 7 can be found on page 60 of the said bylaw. In reaching my decision tonight, I focused on 4 groups. These are the citizens living within the area of the project, the developer of the plans, all the people of Stratford, and the people who will be moving to our town. I know there will be some people who will be disappointed with my decision here tonight. However, I'd like to point out again that my choices I've made are under section 3.2.2 of the bylaw. In regards to Greenway, before I reach my decision, I would like to point out that most of the people of the area have no area with this piece of land being developed. In this case, I once again use section 3.2.2A through N of the bylaw for my decision. I noted that the planning department based their report on section B of the bylaw. However, I did note that the Act also states that the council under section 11.5.5, subsection B, council may approve innovative housing forms. Due to this, I reviewed the sections and found that this development fits within the bylaw. I should note that the main concern of the road system is not that of the developer, but is that of the Department of Transportation. As such, the developer should not be held accountable under section I. Therefore, my decision will be based on section M, which states other matters are considered relevant by the council. It has been the top mandate by the federal, provincial governments, as well as the town of Stratford, that affordable living is a top priority for the citizens of Canada. I feel that not only does this development fill this need, but also ensures the safety of the seniors who are living in this area. It should be noted that seniors refer to both couples and singles who wish to live among other seniors. I also feel that this development does not going to, it might send a message that Stratford is not senior friendly, and maybe this plan and seniors will have to move elsewhere. In view of this, I will be voting against planning board and voting in favor of the senior community moving ahead. Thank you.
Councillor Dugan?
Thank you, Your Worship. The town planner had issues with the original plan, as did I. The planning committee did as well. We voted 4-1 against it. The question tonight is, will we approve the first reading for the rezoning? And my answer to that is yes. Now, I haven't had an opportunity to review the revised plan that was submitted today, but my understanding, listening to Blaine, is that they've made some necessary adjustments or amendments or changes to that plan that will satisfy the planning department, or should, or so it appears. I've had an opportunity again to review that. To me, that suggests that the developer is displaying willingness to address these. And from my perspective, once I have a look at it for sure, with these amendments, I will, I'm sure we'll all be in agreement. But the vote tonight to approve the first reading is, I would certainly be in favor of tonight. And we'll go from there and continue to review the amended plan.
Thank you. Chair of Planning, Councilor Burridge.
I've been through this process and with the planning board and planning staff. Originally, I was against the development as it stood, but the developer has come with some tweaks that I think speak to some issues that we had earlier on. And I think it makes it, the tweaks that they're suggesting does make it more in line with our official plan. I think residents' concerns are being spoken to with these new changes. So I think that's good. They've also shown a willingness and commitment to Solweg and working with them on the wetland area that would be immediately adjacent to this development, which I think is positive. And they have, you know, in our meeting with them, in a brief overview of these changes, they are showing an absolute willingness to try to accommodate what we need them to accommodate to stay in line with the official plan and our bylaw. And so I think that's a good thing. As Gail suggested, half of this development is PUR'd already, and I think that is key. And also Derek's comments on, this being, this model that Greenway have being a model that our seniors are really enjoying, and creating a space for them, I think, is positive. So I think with all that in mind, and with these developments, I'm in favor of the first reading of the PURD, and we'll see, that gives the developer time to work with us and have planning staff look at this concept and have council look at this concept and planning board look at this concept a little closer, and it gives them a little time for us to do that before the second reading adoption. So I can do that for sure.
Okay, with that, thank everyone for their comments.
If you wish, if I can make one comment here, please. I understand that the developer is under a time crunch in regards to buying this piece of land. And at the September meeting, we'll put him way out of line with this. So I would ask the council to consider having a special meeting so we can get this moving forward for him. I don't want to see him in financial straits.
Yeah, I think that's a separate issue. We have a resolution on the floor now, so we'll vote on the resolution, and then we will consider that at another time. Okay, with that, I'll call for a vote on the resolution. All those in favor of the resolution?
We are voting in favor of this land being developed as PURS.
We're against the resolution.
We're against the resolution, right?
For the resolution. We are for the resolution.
Well, the resolution was to deny.
No, it's been changed.
Oh, it's
Yeah, be it resolved that bylaw 45-E, a bylaw to amend it, be hereby read and approved, so to amend. So the motion is to amend the bylaw. So I vote would be in favor of PURD.
It's written in the positive, yeah. Okay, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And contrary minded? Motion carried. Okay, with that, we'll now move to the second resolution. I believe you have another resolution, Councilor Bird.
Yeah, I'll read it in. Number PH 014-2020, RZ 001-19, Redham Meadows rezoning request, R1 to PURD, Stratford Road. Whereas an application has been received from Red Meadows to rezone parcel numbers 106-1175, 106-1167, and 329-011, approximately 14.01 acres in total, from the low-density residential zone R1 to the planned unit residential development zone PERD, and whereas this rezoning request will require the following amendment to be considered: zoning and development bylaw, an amendment to official zoning map to change parcel numbers 106-1175, 106-1167, and 329-011 from the low-density residential zone R1 to the planned unit residential development zone PERD. Whereas 143 notification letters were sent to property owners whose parcels of land are within 500 feet of the subject property to solicit input on the proposed zoning amendment and notifying them of the public meeting to be held on November 27, 2019. And 17 written responses were received. Whereas a public meeting was held on November 27th, 2019, in which several residents provided feedback and had concerns with the proposed 36-unit apartment building. And whereas after getting some feedback from council, the developer has revised the development scheme, removing the 36-unit apartment building and replacing it with 4 or 5 unit townhouses. And it was recommended to hold another public meeting to discuss this new proposal. And whereas notification letters were once again sent to property owners whose parcels of land are within 500 feet of the subject property to solicit input on the proposed zoning amendment, notifying them of the second public meeting to be held on July 15, 2020, and 19 written responses and 1 petition were received. And whereas a second public meeting was held on July 15, 2020, and due to COVID-19 gathering restrictions for this public meeting were limited to 50 people, but it also live streamed for people to watch, and residents were given until July 22nd, 2020 to submit their comments, and several residents expressed concern about density, traffic, and buffering. And be it resolved that bylaw number 45-D, a bylaw to amend the Town of Stratford zoning and development bylaw, bylaw number 45, be hereby read and approved a first time. This resolution bears the recommendation of the Planning and Heritage Committee based on a meeting held on August 3rd, 2020. So moved.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion moved and seconded on the floor. I will ask for comments. I'm not gonna, I would like every counselor to weigh in on this, but whoever would like to speak first, please raise your hand and be heard. Okay, Councilor Smith.
Okay. As in my previous statement, I would like to point out again that most of the people living in this area are not against the lands in questions being developed. In regards to this application, I considered all sections A through M. I had concerns with the following sections, A, D, and F, but I would like to point out these named sections were just concerns in my decisions. My decision is based on section I of the bylaw, and this deals with the safety of the development. I should note that the developer has submitted a detailed traffic plan with his application. I do have some reservations for parts of this plan, but I do want to state for the record that my decision is not based on what is in the traffic study, but what is not in the study. I feel that during construction periods of this project, there will be many vehicles, service vehicles, using the road in the affected areas. Vehicles such as dump truck, cement trucks, plus many other large types of machinery. On the average, these vehicles then need 10 feet of space to operate. If 2 such vehicles were to meet each other, there would be 20 plus feet needed. It should be noted that the streets in this area are 20 feet wide at this time. There are a number of persons living in this area, ranging from children to seniors. Beyond the pavement, there is no sidewalk and grass shoulders and ditches. I do not feel that the safety of the citizens have been met in this section, and I'll be voting no on this plan. I have said in the past that I'm pro-developer, and I hope the developer, along with the town, working on behalf of citizens of Stratford, can find another way of making use of this land. Thank you.
Okay, and just to be clear, we're voting again on the rezoning here. We're not voting specifically on the development.
Same deal, yeah.
Yeah, so it's the same, I should have mentioned that at the
Yeah.
start, that it is a rezoning, a first reading for rezoning. So with that, I'll ask anyone else who's willing to speak to come forward.
Yes, Your Worship. So I'll be voting against this resolution. I feel the surrounding areas of the development, including Redden Heights, John Hamilton Drive, Campbell Drive, are all R1 zoned homes.
I can learn to understand you much better if I can get familiar.
And, other than the church, of course, but, so I don't feel the location is appropriate for PERD. So I'll be voting against the
Sorry,
resolution.
I didn't get that.
Go ahead. Your worship, first of all, I'd like to thank all the residents. It was a lot of debate back and forth in regard to this, and thank everybody, the developer, the residents, the council, our planning department, for all the work that they put into this and all their input. I read the petition, and I read all the emails from residents, the input from the developer and whatnot, and I've highlighted a few points. The petition highlights that the maintaining the investment in property of the residents who reside there now is an issue for them. I would suggest that there's no evidence to support that their properties will depreciate in value due to this development. So the petition is signed on the premise that perhaps that will happen, but I would argue that that's likely not the case. In fact, the properties in the new development are likely going to be at a higher value. So I think rationally speaking, that the properties that are being built at a higher value shouldn't have a negative impact on the adjacent properties. The other major issue that I saw from residents, and it was consistent theme in the public meetings, emails, was the safety on our streets, and that's always a concern. It's there's absolutely no disputing fact there's going to be more vehicles on the street. Nobody would argue that point. That being said, again, rationally thinking, if there's more vehicles, there's obviously a greater risk of accidents or whatnot. That stands to reason. My argument with that argument, so to speak, I guess, is that there was a traffic engineer who did a study, and his study does not supports that this development, that the needs of the from the traffic perspective have been met. That again, safety is always an issue, but that would be what would be addressed in a traffic study. That traffic study is done by an independent, objective, fact-based analysis. You know, if a resident came forward, the residents came forward, and they had themselves seconded an independent, objective, fact-based analysis that I could see and review against the other, perhaps. But that's not the case, and the reality is we should rely on independent, objective, fact-based analysis, not somebody's subjective view. We as councillors should be the ones who would look to an objective, independent, professional, fact-based analysis versus a subjective view. So from that perspective, I feel that the developer has met that in that they did second an independent, fact-based analysis. When I read through the different emails and listened again, there were drainage issues were addressed. Well, that's part of the application process, and engineers will ensure that the drainage is properly cared for. You know, trucks and noise came up. Well, in the context of development, which is what is the context here, R1 versus PERD. R1 has trucks, R1 has noise. That's safe. Therefore, to me, it's not a reasonable argument. If your argument is, if we flip to PERD, now we're going to have problems with truck traffic. Well, with R1, that same quote-unquote issue, I mean, it's just, it's development. It is what it is. Yes, there's dump trucks, but that applies to R1. So in the context of development, it's not a reasonable argument. If you're in favor of R1, then you're obviously in favor then of the concept of trucks and machinery being at that location. The integrity of the neighborhood was another one point that I saw highlighted by a lot of the residents. I see it as an old design versus a new design. In Stratford is a progressive community, and the new design fits with our vision of the town of Stratford. So in reviewing all the issues that residents had, that was just an overview for me. And I'm going to jump now into some of the points that I saw that perhaps more or less favor the proposal by the developer. This development, it's consistent with our official plan. It ties into our official plan. We present our official plan so that developers like this group can see that this is what the town wants, and then they're going out and providing it. And this is what this group are providing. They're providing what we're suggesting we want. The planning department is in favor of this development. We hire the planning department for that exact purpose. They are in favor of this. The committee that sits and arguably have knowledge in this field, that perhaps is a reason why they're selected to that committee, they're in favor of this development. These people are all objective. None of these people live there. They're not backed on to this development, but they're all viewing it objectively. We should promote and embrace these types of developments and these types of developers. These are people that are willing to go the extra mile, to engage the public, to look for ideas. We went back to the drawing board a few times with them. I don't know John Harrell personally, but he lives in our community. I know his reputation, it's a good one. He drives by that every day. He's going to drive by that development. He wants it to be a signature development for himself. I'm sure he does. There's a demand for these types of developments in our community. The market is telling us that this is what the market wants. 30% green space in this development is going above and beyond. And again, it's what the market wants, it's what our vision is for the town, it's what the town planner has suggested suits our vision. These types of developments, they appeal to a demographic. And it's a demographic that we want in our community, that we're trying to entice to come to our community. And these types of developments are what will entice a certain demographic that perhaps we want here and need here. When I think about the whole development here, I also think about alternatives. And I think we all should. What's the alternative? They sell the parcel of land, is one. They go back and develop it R1. There's another. They appeal, if we don't vote in favor, for example, they appeal to IRAC and we let somebody else make a decision. But what about if somebody buys that land that doesn't have as much care, let's say, for the community and the people that live around that parcel of land? That can happen, and we have to be, and the people that reside there should be concerned about that. Who is the other person that might buy that parcel of land? What will they do? So I think there's a lot of things to consider. I'm in favor of voting in favor of the PERD rezoning, and I think that my final point would be This is a quality development, and it aligns with the vision for growth in our community. And that being said, I appreciate everybody else's opinions, and if somebody else wants to have a second there.
Thank you.
Your worship, may I make a point? So I thought we were just talking about rezoning tonight, not about the development.
That's
I
right.
have 3 pages to talk about the development, so I didn't do that tonight. That's why we're talking about the rezoning only.
Well, we'll make time if you would like to, we're not discussing.
I know we're not.
Okay, sorry. So, anyone else like to?
I'll go ahead. When I joined council here a couple of years ago, I took an oath here from Judge Mitchell to represent the residents of Stratford. And I'm a Ward 3 residents, I represent the residents. These people, the people in this residence, in Milliman Drive and so on, moved there 20 years ago. You knew what you were going to get. You knew behind them was going to be an R1. You knew what's behind them. Same as me, and I live in Harlem View. I knew behind me there was going to be an R1 zone. So we're here tonight to change the zone, to change their dreams. Their dreams was to come to Stratford, pay their taxes and so on, and develop, build families and so on. And we're sitting here talking the development. Development is a great development, but it's not the right area for it. It's density, it's small. A couple years ago, we agreed with this developer, 2 R1, 65 units R1, 2 exits, Stratford Road. Now we're here in August of 2019 talking about small density and so on. It's a great development. I saw the homes, the single dwellings and so on. It's a great development. I appreciate the developer doing it, but it's not the place for it. We have to respect the residents. The residents have a say here. They don't want PERD in behind there. They want R1s behind there. Our last decision with Greenway, we listened to the residents. So we got to listen to the residents. They want development behind there, but they want R1. And same as everybody around the table here, we talk about the planning development, we talk about everything else. If you ever live in that area, would you want this behind you? No. You wouldn't want this behind you. You want R1s behind you. So, and looking at the development and concur with Councillor Smith, I mean, the safety issue, there's one way in, one way out. As a former police officer, I mean, the fastest approach to, you're dealing with a paramedic or a domestic or someone, you want to get in there and get out quick, in and out. I mean, I get in there now, I mean, you wouldn't know where to go and get out. There's five or six cul-de-sacs in there. There's a lot of properties in one piece of land. What I'm saying, the residents want development in there, but they don't want it changed to PERD. So I'm going to vote against that. And in 2018, we had a review here. The town, the planning board, talked about all the zones across the zones across Stratford, and this zone wasn't changed. So we're here tonight trying to change the zone, and all the residents around there, and it's going to change the whole neighborhood around there, the whole neighborhood around there. And these residents have a voice here tonight, hopefully, and hopefully everybody around the council's here that listen to the residents. I mean, but and same as a developer, I'm open for new business. I'm open for new business. I'm talking to sports camps and so on, all the new business. But I just can't see this changing the zone in this area. And so I'm going to be voting against tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, what we have before us is a developer asking council to support an application to rezone 14.1 acres from low-density residential R1 to PERD. This property is surrounded by low density. Council has attended 2 public meetings, several meetings with planning, council, and developers. Council has also received a petition from the residents denying the proposed subdivision. We also received letters from the residents stating their concerns with the subdivision. We have residents in this area who have invested in buying or building their homes in an R1 area zone. They were told at the time that this proposed lot was zoned R1. Now, after 30 or 40 years, this could change. Okay, if this rezoning goes forward after tonight, it will change the whole harmony of this neighborhood. In 2013, this site was planned to be a sustainable subdivision, but it never did go forward by this developer, I believe. My understanding is that the residents accepted this proposal, which would have had 65 units in that area. The developer is asking council for a reduction to the minimum lot requirement within the PER zone. Single-family reduction from 72 feet frontages to 50. Side yard setbacks from 8 feet to 6. Townhouse dwellings reduction size 17 feet to 6. The developer is proposing 1.17 acres or 30% green space. I'm not sure at this time how much of this 30% is green space and how much is wetland. One of my big concerns is if this property is rezoned tonight for higher density, we've opened the doors to other developers to come in and we'll be asking the same for any land that's available within our community. And I want to say at this time that I'm not against new construction or new subdivisions, but I am against high-density subdivisions in an existing low-density area. And I'll say it again, I am against high-density subdivisions in an existing low-density area. It just doesn't fit. And like Councillor McMahon said, you know, this is a great application before us, but I just don't think that it fits in that area. There's a place for it, but I'm not sure it's there. And I believe that if this subdivision goes forward after tonight, if it does get the vote, we seriously have to look at another entrance way into that. Like Councillor Glenn said, one way in, one way out. I don't know if that'll work. I think he should be looking at an entrance there off of Stratford Road. So I'll be voting against this subdivision tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Burns?
Okay, I've been making notes, just building off Gary, just because it's fresh. You made a point of saying it twice, that you're opposed to high-density building next to low-density, right?
Yes.
The one we just approved prior to this is higher density than what the Red Meadows is. Their density is 7.3 units per acre, and the Landfest is 5.1 units per acre.
Well, we're talking about two different things here. We're talking about multi-use, we're talking about 3-unit townhouses, we're talking about, in this area, we're talking about it's one level, it's geared for seniors.
Exactly. It's geared for seniors, and that's another point I put down, is there was no hesitation.
Councillor Burns has the floor right now.
No, and I think there should be back and forth. I am having a bit of issue with everyone coming in with their prepared statements, and there's no, because I think we should be going back and forth on it and having a discussion on this, as opposed to everyone coming in with their prepared statements.
Well, I think that's what we're asked to do.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting mixed messages tonight with what we were supposed to vote for, because
Yeah.
I think the council thought we were voting for the zone and then the application after, and that's not what's happening here. So we were prepared,
Yeah.
and so if you just want an A or yay on the zoning, then perhaps
No,
that's what we should have did.
What I want is good discussion,
Yeah.
and between the counselors, and I think that we should have a really good discussion about this, because, you know, and I think Gail's right, we should be speaking about the rezoning in itself almost. Yes, it's tied to the development scheme, but you know, that was one point that I had, and you know, the single story is absolutely an asset on the Greenway. I understand that. You know, the height restrictions that are, the height restrictions don't change from single family to PERD. Correct me if I'm wrong, Blaine, but you know, a townhouse and a 2-story house have to meet the same height restrictions, do they not? So as far as height in a single family residential development and a townhouse, you can have a 2-story house the same height as a townhouse, right? So that you could get the exact same thing in a single family subdivision. what else do I have? So, and then the other thing that, you know, we just passed another one on, was, you know, you were carving out a space for seniors, a safe place for seniors, and you thought this was targeted and a good model. And I'm gonna argue that this Red Meadows development carves out a space for young families to enter our community and find something in that $300,000 range that you can't find in Stratford easily. I can't imagine being a 28-year-old mom with my husband and a young kid trying to buy into the Stratford market right now. It would be incredible to take on a $300,000 mortgage at that age and try to start out in Stratford right now. And that is not there. So I'm going to argue that this development gives a space for those families, young families, just like you're carving out the seniors housing next door. I'm saying give young families a chance here too to enter our market. I think this is a good space, and you know, the density and traffic and these kind of things are certainly concerns, and I can appreciate it. I'm a mom with young kids that go out on the road. I get it. You know, this development, if you look at it, it's got sidewalks inside of it. It's got 30% green space. It's got a park. It's got, and Gary, you argue the 30% green space?
30%, I'm not sure. We never did get that clear. I asked the question. I never did get an answer. There is wetland there. There is
and
forest, whatever.
One thing on the wetland is they put in stormwater ponds there. I actually think that, and I mean, this is my opinion, and I'm no engineer for stormwater management, but there is, along the active transportation trail, there's a large swale that has been over-engineered to take stormwater out to the, you know, out of the area. And so I actually think those stormwater ponds that are in the design are actually probably over-engineered, and a lot of that is going to turn to green space anyway because they have the swale right there. And we can get an expert opinion on that. You know, if tonight you could give this development the same consideration and vote in favor of the PURD for the first reading and give the developer time to come back with a few things. But in going through this process, you know, the developer started out at 101 units. And right now he's taken the apartment building out. He's taken out single-family dwellings along Redden Heights to span that out a bit more. He's shifted houses so that he's maintaining a separation in the single-family housings like you would in a subdivision that's being created today in an R1 subdivision. It's the same spacing of houses in there. You know, he's done that, so he did the single-family dwellings, he took the apartment out, and he took a four-unit townhouse out as well and replaced it with a single family. So it was all single family on single family. So he has made a number of changes. He's down to 78 units, I believe. So I think when I balance the resident concerns, I feel like the developer has tried to speak to the residents' concerns by doing a lot of those moves. And so, you know, the rezoning to PURD, and the reason we have PURD in the official plan is to give an applicant flexibility and to provide a space for innovative housing in our community, which we have 80% R1 big lot subdivisions, and that's Stratford's brand, and I get that, and I understand that's the traditional way of Stratford and how it's been. But if you were to pick a site in this town, this site is, I did a measurement on Google Earth, how accurate that is on the surveyors, but it's 600 meters to Sobeys. And you have an active transportation trail right there to take you through. And it sits on two, I'll put it right here, and this is the official plan that we're looking at. Our official plan asks us to identify opportunities for zoning residential land to allow for smaller lot sizes and high densities without compromising the character of existing neighborhoods. And that is a point that we do get hung up on. But I think it's important that we get hung up on it because we gotta balance our growth that we're experiencing and trying to house everybody with you know, ensuring that our long-term residents are happy. And that's what makes this such a hard decision. It asks us, our official plan asks us to encourage high-quality, higher-density residential development in core areas adjacent to arterial and collector roads. And yes, that's not clear because, you know, this one doesn't have a direct exit to a collector or an arterial road. But, you know, it's not far, and I bet with a little more time, our developer might be able to find something there. He's been trying. We can see, but if we can just give them the benefit of a bit more time, I think that would be beneficial. It asks us to designate specific zones with smaller lots and higher density to meet demand for multiple housing types for predicted population growth. And finally, it asks us to encourage infill development, and this is an infill property. You know, it's 5.1 units, and without taking too much more time, I feel like I've talked a lot and all. But I'm just trying to make points. And Blaine might be able to dig it up, but what's an R1 density? Is it 3 units per acre? An accepted R1 density? Do we know that? I thought I read somewhere that it's 3, but I could be wrong.
I think that's about an average.
About an average for an R1 development, and with our built-in and our new bylaw, we can do 20% semi-detached and special permitted 40% semi-detached. You know, you factor that in, and I don't think we're too far off at a 5.1 density. I don't think we're that far off of an R1 subdivision with 20% outright, I think, semi-detached, and a 40% special permitted. And so I guess I would just, those would be the things that I would identify within this. I do want to balance, and I think it is important to balance long-term residents' concerns with what we got to do to plan for our future here. And I feel like the developer has accommodated a lot of that to this point. And I guess that's my thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time. I know I went on.
No,
But I guess I've been heavily involved, so.
No, and I appreciate everyone's very articulate, very well-argued positions and discussion on this. I have a couple of points that I'd like to make. I also have looked at this long and hard and really tried to see the long-term vision for Stratford, the long-term need for housing balanced against this being a democracy and the right of every citizen to have a say in decisions that are made that affect them. I think that, you know, personally, I thought that this was, it had a few flaws. I would have liked to have seen the rezoning go ahead if in fact people could approve the rezoning, to give time for a couple of issues that I had with it, one being the single family along the Stratford Road, to give the developer a chance to address that like-on-like issue. Also to look to see if there's an option for putting a second entrance onto the Stratford Road. Those two items, I think, would resolve an awful lot of the you know, residents' concerns, because we would have the development with proper buffers. You can have in single family with proper buffers. You can have developments that proceed. In terms of numbers, I think we're talking on the straight math that I heard. I think it's a difference between, what's the total number of units now, Blaine? Robert, do you know that off the top of your head? Anyway, I think the numbers, as Councillor Burridge suggested, the numbers are quite comparable between a straight 10% parkland R1 subdivision and this innovative housing style, which would meet a housing need.
76.
Beg pardon?
76 units.
76, and I think the number that I heard was 64 for the straight math calculation.
That was like a rough estimate, yeah. Yeah.
So it's about 11 more for this style of, or this development, as opposed to a developer who's gonna cut down all the trees and put in R1. So I know we're not supposed to be talking about the development scheme tonight, we're just talking about the rezoning, but I think the two are very much part of the decision-making, or part of the positions of councillors tonight. So myself, I would like to see us give the developer some time to address come up with a second exit onto the Stratford Road, and also look at single family along the Stratford Road, as well as time to address any other concerns. So my position would be, if we're tied tonight, I would be voting in favor of letting it proceed to the first reading to take place. So with that, I will, is there any other comments before I call for the vote?
I would just say that this is like, and I guess the question is, when you're talking about an R1 deferred in this particular area, is, you know, as a town, are we gonna continue to grow out and face increasing infrastructure, capital costs, maintenance costs, or do we look at the limited options that we have to kind of build smarter and save green space for our residents inside that area? And, you know, if we're truly gonna walk the talk of sustainability, it's decisions like this, and this is just one facet of it, but this is kind of where the rubber meets the road. And to continue to build out with R1 developments and take over ag land and keep going, like, you know, we go through budget every year, and we're scraping pennies to get by, to meet budget. And so are we gonna continue to trend on that way? Or are we gonna pivot a little bit and do what we can with these types of opportunities? And that's my question to councillors out there, because that really is the decision when you're looking at these types of zoning questions, so.
Any other comments?
Just have one comment. I'd like to ask Robert perhaps this question. Under the Robert's Rules of Order, like, can the chair, the mayor, can he say which way he would vote? Is that legal, or like you said, if it was a tie, you told us how you're going to vote?
Well, I said there's a couple of positions that would be, there's a couple of things that I would like to see resolved before it was.
But if it was a tie, you said you'd vote for it. So I'm just wondering, under Robert's Rules of Order, is that okay, or is that under the rules?
The mayor to say what he's going to do.
Yeah, before the vote.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think I've ever seen any precedent on that, Deputy Mayor Cole.
Yeah, no, I'm just asking a question because.
I'll check into it.
Yeah, normally that's not the procedure, but anyway, perhaps it's happened and I missed it, but.
Okay, thank you for making that point.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering, it's nothing negative, I just wanna make sure we're going by the rules. Yeah.
But I agree with you, Jill, Councillor Burge, I mean, the pressure's on us, we're looking for new families and so on coming to Stratford, and the density part of it, I agree 100%. And I know that we've got to make some tough decisions. Maybe looking at our zonings or across Stratford, you know, are we going to, reevaluate those, look at those, because, you know, I think things are getting expensive. More, you know, things are more expensive, and I know where you're coming from, and I agree 100% that way. And you know, I know where you're coming from, but at the same time, I just with the zoning and. Looking at it, and you know, and it's great. It's a great subdivision, beautiful single homes and so on, and a townhouse and so on. But there's 60. How many in that one area? 60.
In the, well, it's 76 total.
76
there-
total.
But wait, but there was 19 that emptied to the Stratford Road,
But I
so.
I still get myself
down
going
to-
back to when we agreed with the developer, and we had our ones, and they had 65 singles. I just got that in my mind, we're going back there, right? And I see that, and I see the residents agreeing to that. I don't see the residents agreeing to this. The entrance in and out, it's, I mean, the traffic study, I guess it's signed and delivered, but, I mean, everybody knows it's gonna increase traffic and for emergency vehicles, for plows, for anything else, and just you know, there's things there, I mean, you can look at, but it's just a lot of, our 75 foot's going to 45 foot frontage and so on, and
But that's exactly what this
I know,
is.
yeah.
And
I
to be
understand.
fair, the official plan, like, I know, so inside an official plan, you know, the reason the PERD is in there
Yeah.
is, some of it's already been designated.
Exactly.
But there's a process in there to create spaces for these innovative housing types, and you know, this particular space is, you know, for me, it's within 600 meters of your future urban core. You got to think long term with this stuff, and you know, I guess that's the thing. I guess I am thinking long term
Yeah.
is what I'm doing, and what's the point of planning if you're not doing that?
Exactly.
So, you know, you have your staff here that have, you know, recommended this, and you have planning board that were, you know, in favor, and the process is there to do a rezoning. I understand the residents saying, I bought this and I have an R1 behind me. You know, I bought my house and I searched out so that I'd have a open space zone behind me, and I specifically bought a house with that because I know these things happen, and you know, you have a field behind you zoned R1, you know, I get it, but I guess my argument is this particular development is not far off. I mean, yes, it has the different housing types, but as far as density,
Yeah.
it's not far off what an R1 could do with some special permitted uses in there. So I guess that's my argument. Like, you can develop an R1 with outright 20% semi-detached houses in it,
Sorry.
and then ask special permission to council to go up to 40%. So within an existing R1.
But tonight we're making a decision, and our decisions, and then developer builds his buildings, or his dwelling house and so on, and then 10, 15 years he walks away. You don't have to worry about the traffic and all the problems and so on. The traffic, it's gonna be excessive traffic. It's 72 people times 2, and then you got visitors. There's gonna be excessive traffic one way and one way out. So, you know, it's just that, you know, I didn't understand, but it's, if you had an R1, it'd be better, like, in and out, right? You know, which we had the plan before with singles, and 2 ways out of Stratford Road and 1 down John Hamlin.
Councillor Bland, my argument to you would be
Okay.
that a traffic study was done by an engineer, and that's not what he's presented to us. So your argument is anecdotal evidence, or
Exactly.
talking to people in the community that believe something. The answer is yes, there's going to be more traffic,
Yeah.
but not to the extent that the engineer doesn't feel, based on his report, that it's something that's not sustainable. So it's, I think that.
Who managed the engineers? Who's the middle person here for the town? Who looks at
Well, the engineers are
the
hired.
Department of Transport? They do it, and then you have the company, but who overlooks those people?
I think I made a point earlier.
Yeah.
My point was, there can be conflicting reports.
Exactly.
By professionals. That happens. We don't have a conflicting report by a professional. We have a professional that was hired. We have the province who stamped it. So all of the professionals have suggested that this is fine. So the argument to the contrary should be based on something other than anecdotal or personal opinion or subjective views. We should, if you're going to argue that point, is my point, you should have a traffic engineer's report to present that conflicts with the one that we have now, versus, I just think it. I think it.
No, that's just one opinion I have. With the other opinion I have, we're changing zones. We're going from R1 to a PERD. That's what we're on the table tonight.
I know, and I respect your opinion,
Yeah.
and, you know, this is what this is about. And, I mean, and Derek, with all due respect to you too, I mean, you give a compelling argument as well. You do your research and whatnot. But one of your arguments is that trucks, the roads aren't wide enough for trucks. Well, in the context of development, R1 versus PERD, there's not different trucks for the different developments. It's all the same. So that argument doesn't really fly, given the fact that it is zoned R1, so there can be development. So, you know, we have, and I appreciate all sides of the argument, but think through it from the context of development, R1. It's not if we refuse PERD, there's going to be no development, therefore no trucks. No, it's zoned R1, so it's still zoned for development. So, do you know what I mean? I hope you appreciate that, Derek.
Yeah, but the life of an individual overtakes everything else.
Say that again, Derek.
The life of an individual in this subdivision overtakes all other arguments.
Okay, the one thing that I want to make sure the councilors understand when they vote is that this decision will be in place for at least a year. Is that right, Robert? That developer cannot come back within 1 year unless it's a totally different development scheme?
Correct.
For this property? So it would have to be a totally different or a substantially different development scheme, is that right?
The proposal has to be different, yes.
Okay.
True on a rezone, Lane. I know it's true on a development application, but.
The microphone,
it's true
guys.
on rezoning, yes.
Okay. And the other thing that I think you should keep in mind is that these decisions that we make are appealable by either the residents or by the developer, so that's why we need solid reasons for our decisions. So with that, if there's no other comments, I'll call for the vote. So please signify by saying aye, all those who are in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay. Motion not carried. Motion denied. Okay, with that, we will move to you have another resolution, I believe, Councilor Bird?
Oh, yeah, that's the amendments. I'll bring them up here. All right, so these are the minor text amendments. Resolution number PH 016, 2020, zoning and development bylaw number 45C, minor text amendments. Whereas minor text amendments are required to the zoning and development bylaw number 45 to correct an error within section 1155B of PERD zone, minor amendments to the R2 and C2 sections, an insertion of a new section on fence heights in section 8, and minor text amendments in the swimming pool section 8.14.1A. And whereas a public meeting was held on July 15th, 2020, and due to COVID gathering restrictions for this public meeting were limited to 50 people, but it was also live streamed for people to watch, and residents were given until July 22nd, 2020 to submit their comments, and no comments were received on the proposed text amendments that were outlined by the town planner. Be it resolved that bylaw number 45C, a bylaw to amend the town of Stratford zoning and development bylaw, bylaw number 45, be hereby read and approved the first time. This resolution bears the recommendation of the Planning and Heritage Committee as discussed at a meeting held on August 3rd, 2020, so moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion? If not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
our regular agenda now. So we will now go back to, next item is, we swapped number 9 and number 12, eh? So we'll now move to number 10, recreation, culture, and events. So I'll ask Chair of Recreation, Culture, and Events, Councillor Steve Gallant, to give the report.
Thank you, Your Worship. The capital project updates, we have Fuller's National Playground in construction right now. Some things, Fuller's multi-use building, the washroom down in Fuller's Marsh, the Pondside multi-use courts are up and going. Very positive comments from the kids there. I was out talking to them. It was nice to see the first multi-use court in Stratford. Hope just the beginning of great things. The Stratford Youth Centre Council, the Youth Council was able to get enough members together for a meeting in July or August due to summer work schedules. They decided to wait to September to the next meeting. Total 10 youth council members will be returning for another year in September. At the request of younger youth members, we are looking to start a junior council in September for members in grades 7 and 9, and they wanted to participate in a committee like the older group. The down youth councils are hoping to start a new drama program this fall. The Youth Centre, the request for such proposal came from several youth interested in the arts. The Youth Centre will be starting to look at Youth Centre casual staff for the fall. There's need for 2 more staff with flexible schedules. All staff new in return will go through training before starting to understand the COVID operation plan. The Stratford programs, the camp's up and going, 3 weeks into introducing the sports. Recreation Culture Events Department is currently working on a fall program, a town centre program planning. Fall programs will be proposed as previous years. However, contingency planning will be included should restrictions be lifted or placed on the programs. The Stratford fields are up and going. Snow fencing was placed that all sports fields are open and used with the requirement for all organizations to have viable operation plans due to COVID. All town and Stratford sports fields require careful considerations to safely offer sport programs. Snow fencing was placed at various sports fields to limit the crossover players, coaches, and spectators. At sporting events, makings were also placed in ball dugouts and special precautions were taken. The town of Stratford is working in the province of PEI with Canadian Premier Soccer League, currently ongoing now, to provide a training location at Fuller's Conversation Park in our soccer field. Details are still being worked out to determine the viability of hosting safe training facilities. So they're ongoing right now at our field. Canadian Premier Soccer League is practicing there 4 or 5 times a day. The Stratford Softball Association has submitted a proposal to host a under 16 softball provincial tournament at Bunbury and Upper McNeil Fields should the term be awarded to Stratford. At the softball event, the event will take place in September. So there's a number of things going on out in the go. The fields are maxed out, softball and baseball and so on. And then right now we have a maintenance gentleman from 4 to 9 every day. We had that in a budget, which is helping things out very, very much. Our splash pad is maxed out every day from 10 o'clock in the morning to 8 at night. And I just want to make a little salute here to some chair of recreation and of course a hockey fan of Zach McCune of Stratford going to the second round of playoffs against the St. Louis Blues. So that's one of our residents and be very proud of him, a professional hockey player. And Zach, good luck to Zach in the playoffs against the St. Louis Blues. Yeah. So any questions, anybody?
I would just like to state that the new Pondside court and the Fuller's Marsh Development Playground, I like both projects. I think this is a new route that we are taking within Stratford, that we're now starting to look after the older kids, the beyond playground kids, and I do like the path that we're taking on. I want to congratulate yourself and the Recreation Department for the job that you're doing.
I also would like to echo what Derek just said. I was looking at the 3D renderings, the natural playground at Fullerton's, and I was really impressed with that. I had looked at that just before we came over here, and I'm really impressed with that, and with the multi-use courts. I was overlooking at them, and that's a great addition, great thing for the town. So I want to congratulate Councillor Gallant and all the work he's doing and making things happen along the Recreation Department. There's a lot of hard work going into that.
of course, we haven't mentioned there, I mentioned that our fitness, different physical fitness movements there in the strength area, like I think there's 14, 15 benches, so you can do different exercises there for a walk. So a lot of good comments on that. People do working different body parts and out for a walk and getting something there. So keeping everybody physical fit, mentally, and everything else.
I'm glad you're looking after the seniors, Steve.
Thanks very much. Any other comments on questions for Councilor Bland?
So regarding the ball field situation, I think I asked this before, what are we looking at with as far as pressures with ball fields? Like we have our campus in the future, but is it as bad as, there's a lot of kids and not enough fields?
It's a lot. And Jerry, you can comment on that, Jeremy?
Yes, sure. We are somewhat limited in our ball field capacity. Daytime, Monday to Friday, we do have ample field available. The only problem is that most of our youth are engaged in other programs, and most of their coaches are involved in day-to-day going to work. So evenings and weekends, yes, we do feel a stress or a burden on all our fields. Some of our minor baseball and minor softball teams have taken the opportunity to go to neighboring communities, Fort Augustus, Cardigan, that sort of thing, to access field time. So I think like anything, it's working with your neighboring communities to allow everybody to get their proper practice and game time. It is something we'll have to look at, and I know we have it in our planning for the future of the community campus, so that we can probably better service our own teams within our own community.
Thanks.
Okay, if no other questions, proceed with your resolution.
Okay, thank you, Worship. Resolution number REC 004, 2020, change program room donation. Recreation culture events moved by myself. Whereas a change, Canadian Health Advanced by Nutrition and Great Exercise Program is free 12-month lifestyle program. UPEI is offering to residents of Stratford who are at risk or for have a metabolic syndrome, and whereas the change program was created by leading health professionals at Metabolic Syndrome Canada to provide family medicines clinics with the tools they need to offer effective, lasting lifestyles intervention to patients with metabolic syndrome. Based on evidence from diet and exercise research, the change program focuses on long-term changes and overall well-being. It targets the conditions that offers progress to high blood pressure, heart disease, stroke, and diabetes while reducing the need for medications. Whereas a national study examined participants' outcomes in the change program prior to enrollment, approximately 6% of participants had underlying conditions to metabolic syndrome that were not adequately managed with medication. While taking part in the study, 90% of the patients experienced a reversal of one or more metabolic syndrome conditions, and further 40% demonstrated improvement in their diet and exercise scores. Participants in the change program was associated with a reduction in 10-year risk of having a heart attack. Whereas change in the group facilitation-based program, each session consists of nutrition education with a registered dietitian, followed by physical activity with a clean analysis, and whereas the change program was created by Metabolic Syndrome Canada, a not-for-profit organization founded in 2011 to improve the long-term health of Canadians through effective direction and exercise, lifestyle, and intervention. The program at UPI is funded by donors to the UPI Community Outreach Fund. Whereas in accordance with Section 5.7 of the Grants and Donation Bylaw, Council may make a resolution, provide a free rebate for the purpose to align this town's objective. Being resolved that the town to donate room rental space to the change program for a one-year period valued at $2,430. So moved, yeah.
Okay, do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion.
I have a couple of comments, Your Worship.
Okay, please proceed.
So, Councillor Gallant, I'm in receipt of the invoice for this program. Apparently they need 2 rooms for the year. So this $2,430 you mentioned
Yes.
is just for 1 room.
Yes.
They want 2 rooms
They want 2 rooms.
for a total of $4,770. So we are going to pass this resolution amount should be in there? And my second question is, what's the percentage of Stratford residents are going to benefit from this, seeing how it's being paid for by the residents of Stratford?
Okay, Jeremy? Has his numbers?
Sure, I can answer that. The equation, the amount in the amount in the resolution is correct, $2,400. It does take 2 rooms, but over time, the amount of room space reduces down, so we calculate the whole year calculation into that, so the correct rate of $2,430 is there. And the participation level right now of residents within the Stratford program is 70% Stratford residents participating in the program.
So are you aware that any Stratford residents were